Welcome back, everyone. You're watching Foreman's Basement. My name is Frank, and I'm hanging out with the Honer Thunderbird this morning. The topic for today's video is the worst things about playing harmonica. The things that absolutely suck, that I hate, that nobody should have to deal with. The struggles that we face on this unique instrument. And yeah, I guess here we go, shamelessly ripping off other content creators, but what can I say? When I'm inspired, I am inspired. So we'll just go ahead and jump right into the list. I don't know, I guess it'll be a top 5, starting off at 5. They are not cheap, okay? When I first started playing harmonica, I was under the general impression that it was a cheap, sort of toy-like instrument that I wasn't really aware of the different quality, the different, I didn't know anything about Honer, Seidel, Suzuki. I just thought you could go out and basically buy whatever and it would be okay. It wasn't until I did a little bit of research and realized if you want to get serious on the instrument, you have to get a professional quality instrument. For me, it's the Marine Band, but there's so many harmonicas out there, so you'll just have to find out which one works best for you. But they are not cheap. This is my standard instrument, the Marine Band 1896, and these run about, really it depends on where you get them, but they can go from $50 to $60, $65. It really depends on where you go. And it is so overpriced, especially because you also have to buy different keys, right? This one, for example, is in A. But let's say that I wanted to do, I have a C here. Let's say that I wanted to play in G. I'd have to buy a whole entire other harmonica, which is ridiculous when you think about it. Imagine you bought a guitar and you could only have it in one tuning. And that comes from the reeds, of course, because the reeds are tuned at the factory and they have to pretty much stay to that note, right? So they are not cheap and you have to buy a lot of them. And if you want it to feel good, if you want to feel good while you play, you want to have full control over your playing, you're going to want to also get a quality instrument. So all of that adds up to they are not cheap, especially if you have to buy a whole set. I struggle to maintain a set of just Marine Bands, I'll get a whole set of Marine Bands, and by the time I get a brand new set, the oldest one in the set starts to go. There will be something wrong with the reed or whatever, and it is just a nightmare to deal with. I have wasted hundreds, actually probably thousands of dollars of my money trying out different harmonicas, trying different brands, different tunings, different materials, wooden comb, plastic comb. It gets ridiculous. I would say if you're just starting out, get something that's a sure bet, like a Special 20 or maybe a Marine Band, something in that area, or maybe an East Top, something that's has a good reputation, because that's the other thing is if you get a bad harmonica, you're going to have a bad time. You're not going to be able to understand why you can't bend, why you're having trouble bending, because the gaps on the reeds are probably all messed up. And anyway, this leads us to number 4, actually, is maintenance with the harmonica in general, right? This is from the Jonah Fox, I think that's that guy's name. I was just watching his video on this while I was trying to sort of get everything together. And it's true. The harmonica has maintenance issues that are not always easy to fix, right? If you pop a guitar string, theoretically you could, restring, or you could use the strings around you to fill in the missing notes. If something happens to you on stage, I have a few very bad memories of one reed just not working while I'm on stage, and it's like, unless you have a backup in your pocket of the same key, which is something that you should do. Most people don't. I don't do that personally, even though I should. And that lands you in embarrassing moments. Well, all of a sudden you'll go, and the reed will choke on you. No noise will come out. And now you got to find a workaround. Now, if it's the 2 draw, maybe you could do the 3 blow, since that is the same note, but you won't be able to get any of those bends, and it's just a nightmare. It's not really the kind of thing that you can fix on stage. I'm sure you've all seen that video of Stevie Ray Vaughan when he's on stage and he snaps a string, and I think his guitar tech brings over his spare guitar and puts it over him while he's, or maybe even, I don't know. That's not really possible on harmonica. Your best bet if you get into that situation is to, on the heavy end, on the bottom 6 holes, give it a hard smack on the side of your leg or something, and just pray to God that whatever that obstruction in the reed was will be gone afterwards, because otherwise you're shit out of luck and you'll be sitting there like an asshole. Like I said, if it's, say, a 2 draw, something that's a home note, something that you need a lot for that song, you're shit out of luck, my friend. So the maintenance aspect kind of sucks. Also, keep in mind, Imagine you have a lot of harmonicas, right? Over time, they're going to develop residue on the inside, and you do have to clean them every now and then just to, disassemble everything, soak the reed plates, scrub them gently from the rivet to the end of the reed plate. All of this stuff you have to do. If not, sometimes look, this harmonica, I hadn't played it in months, and I just picked it up recently, and it was a little gross, dude. I was playing some of these notes, and I was just getting a dusty-ass feeling and taste in my mouth. It was gross. It was gross. And especially if you play marine band, which uses nails instead of screws, these things are nearly impossible to take apart unless you have some kind of knowledge of, or if you have a power drill that you can install your own screws. It gets kind of ridiculous at some point. Now, this isn't generally a problem. For me, I try to keep a very clean mouth. I will only drink alcoholic beverages while I play, or water. And when I say alcoholic beverages, I mean either light beer or straight whiskey. For example, I would never drink something like a buzzball. You've never seen me drinking a buzzball and playing harmonica at the same time. If you see me in that condition, I'm drunk. So, because all of that affects the reeds, right? The breath that you're letting out is, and of course, it's still not good to drink beer or drink whiskey while you play, but those are probably some of the cleaner options when you compare it to something like buzzball, like I just said, that's just loaded with sugar and alcohol and God knows what. Oh boy, we got the low battery warning. I think we'll be okay. So it's just a pain in the ass. Where were we? The maintenance part, right. It's hard, and especially if you don't know what you're doing and you just started, you might mess up a reed and just be like, okay, I guess this harmonica is done for. I guess let me try to return it, or I'll just put it in a drawer because I can't do anything with it. I know plenty of people that when one reed goes on the harp, that's it. Imagine if you popped a string on a guitar and you were like, well, I guess I got to throw the entire guitar away. It's ridiculous. And the maintenance aspect, it's not the hardest thing in the world to do basic maintenance like gapping and cleaning and all that stuff, but there's a little bit of a learning curve to it. There really is a little bit of a learning curve. Okay, moving on. That was number 4. We're now at number 3. This is a big one. This is really important. Everyone thinks you're Bob Dylan. Everybody. When you walk up to an open jam, if you tell them that you're a harmonica player and you want to play on their set, this is what they're going to think in their mind. It's a terrible connotation. It's a terrible reputation that the instrument has. When you tell somebody that you play harmonica, that's immediately what they're going to think of. They're not going to think of this. They won't think of a smooth noise like that. They are going to think of... That's what goes on in people's minds when you tell them that you play harmonica. So this leads into the classic Adam Gusso concept. Harmonica players get no respect. There are many parts of the world, even here in the US, that the harmonica is seen as sort of a hobo instrument, a toy. It's really not taken seriously. I mean, again, you go to a jam, an open mic, and you tell them you play harmonica, you can kind of see that look, and you can kind of get an idea of what's going on in their head when you tell them that. And also, a side note about this, I have seen some terrible harmonica players on stage. One time I saw a guy invite himself onto a set. Like, he had his harmonicas, I guess he thought he figured out what key it was in, and he ran up there and just started blowing into one of the microphones. Well, he wasn't in the right key, and he was not invited on the set, and just that, and God bless him. I'm sure he was just like, I'm going to go up there and be part of the music, but, he ended up like this. And even in the wrong key, if you can imagine that. So, harmonica players get no respect. The average person on the planet who plays harmonica, that's how they play it. They're like... That's the average human being on the planet playing harmonica. Most people are not even aware of blues or that you can get these nice mellow tones. people don't even know that. Hell, I didn't even know until I saw that Sonny Boy Williamson video where he's playing one of these big bass harps and it sounded like a saxophone, and I thought, this is like the perfect in-between blues and jazz. It's got the brass aspect to the tone, very beautiful, deep, dark, earthy tone. And I had just never seen a harmonica played like that, ever. Or think of Bye Bye Bird, which is not as jazzy, but it's again, it uses a low harp. It's that wasn't exactly Bye Bye Bird. I don't know why I thought I'd try to play that, but you guys get the idea. Okay, moving on to the next, what do we got here? We're on number 2, I think. Getting a good sound on stage. This is very difficult because if you're lucky enough that somebody will let you on stage and blow into a microphone, God forbid, even if you're playing a low harp like an A, which is relatively low on the scale of things, most microphones are not set up for harmonicas. And those reeds, again, even on the lower things, they can sound shrill depending on how it's set up. You can also get feedback, which is horrific. Like if you plug in your harmonica microphone into an amp, if you stand too close to it, I have to be honest, I'm not sure how feedback works, but if you stand too close to it, sometimes you just get this just wheeling sound that is not conducive to good music. The audience physically recoils from these noises. Going back to what I was saying earlier, I have seen some harmonica players, even some who are competent, as in they can play the blues on harmonica, but then they turn up so loud that you can just see people, you see at the brewery that I play at, they have this little tub of earplugs, and I've seen people walk up and just grab those after a harmonica player. A harmonica player who, again, was good, was competent, but he just turned his amp up, and maybe his settings were all wrong. Maybe he had too much high, too much mid, and not enough bass. I don't know. I just have seen it, and it's unfortunate. I feel a little bit embarrassed to be a harmonica player when I see something like that, but these things do happen. Okay, I'm completely losing. I did this list out of order now. So, okay, this is a very important one. I guess this will be number 1. Is there anything else? Let me see here. Yeah, I guess this will be number 1, is learning the keys and positions. When I first started to play harmonica, I didn't have a lot of knowledge about music theory or how instruments work, how chord structures work. So, naturally, you buy an A harmonica, you think you should be able to play blues in A, right? Except it's totally backwards, because the harmonica is actually not meant to play blues music. The harmonica is meant to play German polka, traditional German music. It was not designed to even bend. I don't even think that bending was definitely a blues invention, and somebody in the South at the beginning of the century figured out that, hey, yeah, you can play that German stuff, but what about this? And that tradition spread, because back then harmonicas actually were cheap. They were like 10 cents or something like that, back in those days. I love this. This is a rumor. This might not even be true, but I heard that Alec Rice Miller, Sonny Boy Williamson II, was a real brat when he was a kid, and his sisters would just buy him marine bands until he crapped them out. He didn't want to work. He would just sit there and play his harmonica until he was old enough to play at the towns, at the juke joints, at the gatherings on the weekends, the fish fries and all that type of stuff. And that is, I just love the thought of that, of one, how cheap they were, but just the thought that Sonny Boy was like, no, I don't want to work. I want to play music. That's what I want. That's what matters to me. I'm not going to waste my time, making money for somebody else. I want to play music. I always thought that was a very funny story. Okay, hang on. I lost my... Right. So the positions, the keys, it's crazy because... Look, you have an A harmonica, and you can play in the key of E, which is second. Well, here, let's start with first. First position, key of A. So you can play blues in the key of A in first position. It's not easy. I just learned it last year. something going on with that 3 draw there, but that would be first position. That's in the key of A. And then we move forward to second position, which would be the key of E. Sorry, this Marine Band Deluxe kind of sucks. I'm going to switch to the regular Marine Band for this. And second position is what's most common. When you're listening to blues music on Spotify or wherever, you're normally listening to a harmonica player playing in second position. So that's kind of where I started. But again, imagine me trying to learn this when I don't even know an A chord from a C chord. You know, I have the best advice that I can give to anyone out there is look up the musical alphabet as written on the lines, like where you write the sheet paper. That's what made it make sense to me. I could see the way that they traveled up and down, and you could see what the 1, 4, 5 is, 2, 5, 1. Then it all started to make sense. And I'm not going to get into that here, but imagine trying to learn that when you know nothing about music. And then there's third position, which I think starts on the 1 draw or 1 draw bend, and I couldn't even begin to show you because I don't know. I really don't. This is the only third position that I know. Hold on. Okay, never mind. I was going to try to play... What's that fucking song called? Cristo Redentor by Charlie Musselwhite. Christ the Redeemer, but we're not even going to bother. See, so I don't know my third position, not off the top of my head. So imagine trying to learn about positions and keys, and all the while you're learning how to bend. I don't even know how to overblow yet. I just learned how to tongue block. I can't overdraw. You know, there's just so it goes deep, which leads me to my last point, which is really more of an honorable mention than anything else. It is almost impossible to emulate. I mean, you listen to the first Sonny Boy Williamson 1, John Lee Williamson, and you hear the way that he plays along to the band, and it just will make your head spin. I don't think there's certain levels of mastery to the harmonica that I think to this day have not been emulated ever since. It is so hard to get an individual person's feel or touch. I mean, don't get me wrong, of course, Little Walter, everyone plays Little Walter. A lot of people love Sonny Boy Williamson too. But it is damn near impossible. Try to find one person on this planet right now that can actually play Don't Need No Horse. The way that Little Walter did. Really the way that Little Walter did. I've seen people come close. I've never seen anyone actually emulate it the way that Little Walter did it. And that goes true for so many classic harmonica songs. The list is endless. I mean, when you look at the classics, the standards, it's like Stairway to Heaven. It's not something that you're never gonna make something that amazing. It's already practically set in stone for the genre, you know? I mean, that's not to say that there isn't incredible territory to be explored. There is. Look at Jason Ritchie. He has pushed the instrument to new limits. That's just one example out of many incredible, amazing harp players that are happening right now. And I actually think that there's a harmonica revolution happening, because if you guys saw that article that I shared on the community posts, harmonica sales have been up since the Bob Dylan movie. Also, not just that, just my own anecdotal evidence. I've seen many people at the jams, young people, bring harmonicas and start to play blues, specifically blues. I'm not talking about some Bob Dylan wannabe. There are plenty of those. There has always been plenty of those. But I'm talking about, I've been seeing more young people showing up to the blues jams to play harmonica. There's this one young kid at the Aztec. He's actually an Elvis impersonator, if you can imagine that. And he's good. He is a legitimate Elvis impersonator. But you know what's so funny? One day he came in on blues night, and I saw this kid in the corner playing his A harp along to the songs, and I just thought, he's competent. I mean, he's not amazing. You can tell he just picked it up recently. But what I'm saying is, we're all picking it up recently. I just picked it up recently. Go look at. I'm gonna have to gather a list or something, we'll talk about up and coming harmonica players. But a lot of the guys that I know, especially here in the YouTube community, have started very recently, and it's within like, I think COVID obviously had a big, a pandemic. That's the one chance that you get, right? That probably had a lot to do with it. But so there is hope. But again, going back to that last honorable mention, it is nearly impossible to emulate some of the greats. Not all of them. Some of them you can. But there are certain songs, certain moments in time, whether it's the harmonica player, the backing band, a combination of everything, and the vibe that was in the room. There are some songs, some moments in time that you just will not recreate. And there's incredible harmonica players that push the instrument to its technical limitations, like to the absolute limit of what the instrument can do. But that has nothing to do with the soul that some of those old recordings had. And I'm talking about basic stuff. I'm not even talking about overblowing or, playing chromatically through overblows and all that. I'm talking about the most basic, like 12-bar blues, just done right, with a good tone, with a good attitude. One of those things that just, again, is cemented into the halls, into the annals, as they say, of blues history. Anyway, guys, I'm rambling. Let me see if I got anything else. So we talked about how hard it is to get a good sound on stage. We talked about how annoying it is for maintenance when you're trying to play and you get a reed stuck. What are you going to do? You're going to take the cover plates off on stage? Forget about it. Everyone thinks you're Bob Dylan. Harmonica players get no respect. They are not cheap. All right, guys. The next video, I already have the list written out here, will be the best things about playing harmonica. And it'll probably be a shorter video because it is what they call a high effort, low reward instrument. I can attest to that myself in all of my years of playing. That is something I have found to be true. This has been Foreman's Basement. Until next time, have a wonderful Sunday. Today is Super Bowl Sunday, so if you guys like sports, I don't know anything about football, but go ahead and enjoy.